Welcome to Doses of Deception. I am your host, BB McGuire. As a seasoned nurse with more than 3 decades of experience, we will discuss various topics, exposing deception and empowering you with knowledge and information to foster critical thinking. This show is for informational purposes only and is not intended to provide medical advice. Please consult your trusted healthcare provider. So thanks, guys. We're on episode 2. How about that? Got the first episode out of the way. All the nerves and jitters are worked out. Got a little tech support for some of the glitches that we had. So hopefully this will go a little smoother. And yes, I still have the glary glasses to my sister. I ordered some that don't have the glary lenses, but they're not in yet. So onward we go. So over on X, Spiritual Street Fighter, want to give her a big shout out, created this image to capture the spirit of me, the show, entering the information war. And I just thought she did a great job kind of encapsulating, the spirit of how I envision it. So thanks again to Spiritual Street Fighter over on X. So one of the things that we're doing here on this show is exposing deception and countering it with truth. And one of the ways that we do that is by speaking the truth. Authentic people will tell you the truth, even if it makes them look bad, because they value integrity more than they like being liked by everyone. So I'm going to tell you the truth because my integrity is more important than my popularity. This one spoke to me too. People who tell you the truth are trying to free you from a prison you don't even know you're in. I want to be free. I want you to be free. And the only way we're going to do that is to share the truth with one another and then with others. Because the more you're told not to question a particular authority or science, the more you absolutely should question that authority or science. I am routinely questioning authority now. And I really want to empower you with knowledge so that you have the courage to as well. And if there's one thing that since COVID I've learned, and that is that courage is absolutely contagious. And then this one spoke to me. A patient cured is a customer lost. Man, how true is that? And then finally, this kind of struck me because I kind of felt like this was me. 1 minute, you're young and fun, and then suddenly you're deep diving into Rockefeller's takeover of medicine, rejecting Big Pharma's poison, and realizing they've been slowly killing us for profit while calling it science. And if you did not join us for episode 1, we covered the Rockefellers and how they captured medical training in our country and also our education system, as well as the pharmaceuticals. And this last one, this meme, I love this one. Because this, ladies and gentlemen, I want peer-reviewed articles and at least 10 sources. Why? You got jabbed in a parking lot by a stranger with a drug you knew nothing about just to get a free donut. There are going to be those who attack and dismiss and demand. Here's my position on that. There you go. You got jabbed in a parking lot by a stranger. Or you got jabbed by something and they couldn't even show you the insert, what ingredients were in it. Do you have any safety data? Do you have any data on that shot given with a flu shot or with a shingle shot or with a pneumonia shot? I'm at CVS all the time, and they're running those ads overhead. Come get your shots. You can get 3 or 4 at a time. There is absolutely zero data that shows that taking those vaccines all at once is safe. It's never been tested. Yet they're out there convincing people that it's okay to do that. Woo. Yeah. So I shared on episode 1 that I woke up during COVID, and apparently I was one of many in the medical community. So I'll share this from Dr. Pierre Corey.
What was my experience during COVID? I think I'm going to answer a different question, and I'm going to answer the question, what have I learned in COVID?
Right.
Because really what COVID did to me was it took me out of a world that I thought I lived in, and it put me into a world that I think I know more. But I'm going to be very humble about that. Every time I think I'm like cynical enough about everything going on, I'm constantly taught that I'm being still too naive. And basically what I've learned is that, you know, well, let me say a different thing, and maybe it'll encapsulate what Charles said, but I saw a world go mad, completely mad, very quickly. And my personal opinion as to what caused that illness was this very coordinated, overwhelming propaganda and censorship. We were flooded with messages and imaging and coordinated news attacks that instilled fear, um, that made like kind of like good people and bad people, right? So anyone who strayed from the consensus was a misinformationist and to be not believed, and they were harmful and they were killing people, right? So only if you believe the truth could you be considered a good person. And it was very disorienting, right? And the
Right.
other things that I saw was that like basic principles that I thought we lived by. And I like to give this example. So, as a physician who worked in hospitals and was a clinical leader, like I was the head of critical care and ICU, ICU doctors were particularly interested in ethics, some of us. So, I was very interested in biomedical ethics, always had been on ethics committees in hospitals. And I saw this like immediate, almost dismissal of medical ethics. And here I am, a guy who's lived my life according to certain spiritual principles, trying to be kind, Hippocratic oath,
Right.
putting the
Right.
patient as my first consideration. Like what Charles said is like, you would never mandate a medical therapy on anyone, right? And suddenly I saw these perversions and violations of things that I thought were codes that we lived by as a society, and I saw them overturned overnight, and it was really troubling. And then when I tried to bring out the things that I've always brought out in my career, because remember, I like to call myself, that without sounding a master educator. Like I've won teaching awards. Everybody loves the stuff that I teach and my lectures and my research. Suddenly I was doing the same thing I've been doing all my career, but I was public enemy number one for doing that. And like I did nothing different. I was just learning what I learned clinically through research and bringing that out. And suddenly I was like at the, in the crosshairs.
Hmm. So, how does fear propaganda affect us personally and collectively? When fear kicks in the amygdala, that's the alarm system in the brain, it floods our bodies with cortisol and adrenaline. This is the fight or flight response. It narrows our attention, it reduces our memory, and it shifts our decision making to short term safety rather than long term logic. Critical thinking is replaced by emotional reactivity. Do you remember COVID? Do you remember the toilet paper? Talk about emotional reactivity and short term safety. Woo! So, the doses of deception for this episode Come on, baby. The FDA is there to make sure our food and drugs are safe. They wouldn't allow harmful products to be consumed by Americans. Do you still believe that lie? Well, let's expose it, shall we? We'll start off with some current events. What we're going to start off with is a review from episode 1 and the FDA grass standards.
We told them that we wanted the dyes out of the food. The science on the dyes is so overwhelming. They're making products now in this country that have the dyes in them, like Fruit Loops, for example. And you buy the same product in Canada and it doesn't have the dyes. You buy the same product in Europe and it doesn't have the dyes. So there are a lot of ingredients, and one of the things that we're doing is we've launched a review of the GRAS standards, and we're going to get rid of the GRAS standards for most products. The GRAS standards is a standard that was adopted in 1958. It was adopted because when FDA was created to regulate food, there were foods that were generally recognized as safe, GRAS, generally recognized as safe, like flour, like dairy, like eggs. And they didn't want to make companies test those products, so they created that designation. But that designation was expanded by an industry that began taking advantage of it so that any new chemical that they want to add to our food is generally recognized as safe and gets no review. Yeah. That's why we have 10,000 ingredients in our food in this country. In Europe, they only have 400. And we have the worst chronic disease burden of any country in the world. So we are going to get rid of the GRAS standards for new products. We're going to go back and review all of these old ingredients to make sure that they are safe. And we're going to encourage these companies to get rid of them as quickly as possible.
Great. So in 1958, Congress enacted the Food Additives Amendment. They recognized that many substances added to food would not require a formal pre-market FDA review to assure safety, because the safety had already been established by a long history of use in food. But they were never actually studied to ensure safety. FDA.gov maintains a GRAS, G-R-A-S, which stands for Generally Recognized as Safe, a GRAS substances database if you're interested in researching more. Let's hear from RFK Jr. during his confirmation hearing.
Tell me about dyes and things that you're concerned about, because I get more talk about that than anything.
We have 10,000 ingredients in our food in this country because FDA employs a standard called the GRAS standard and looks at any new chemical as innocent until proven guilty. In Europe, they have 400 ingredients in their foods. Kellogg's makes Fruit Loops for the United States alone. It is loaded with red dye, blue dye, yellow dye, and many, many other ingredients. They make the same product for Canada that's all vegetable dyes. And for Europe, if you eat a McDonald's French fry in this country, it has 11 ingredients. You eat the same product in Europe, it has 3. We are allowing these companies, because of their influence over this body, over our regulatory agencies, to mass poison American children. And that's wrong. It needs to end. And I believe I'm the one person who's able to end it.
Thank you.
So over on X, Camus put out red dye number 3, linked to cancer in studies, was banned in U.S. cosmetics in 1990, but remains permitted in food and ingested drugs. The FDA announced a ban effective January 15th, 2027 for food and January 18th, 2028 for drugs, set with 2 business days left in the Biden administration. Europe restricted its use in food 20 years ago, except for specific cases like cocktail cherries. A former FDA director stated the U.S. is 20 years behind Europe on reviewing red dye number 3 and other dyes. A Senate hearing discussed the delay, noting its absence from cosmetics, yet presence in diets, and questioned the wait until 2027 to 2028. So manufacturers will have until January 15th of 2027 to reformulate their products. This compliance will also apply to imported foods and drugs. Dr. Marty McCary also had something to say about red dye 3.
Just a few months ago, we had the former FDA director and asked him about red dye number 3, and it was a pretty interesting conversation. Red dye number 3, we've done studies on it, and we won't allow it in cosmetics, okay, because it causes cancer, but we are allowed to put it in our food. And a little bit confused. I'm a football coach, but I'm not that stupid, you know. Put it on your face and put in your stomach. There's no difference. But he made an interesting statement that we're 20 years behind Europe because Europe doesn't allow it in anything. We're 20 years behind Europe on looking into red dye 3 and all the other dyes. What's your thoughts on dyes in this country?
I agree with you that it did not make sense that red dye number 3 was banned in cosmetics but allowed in the food supply. And so, as you know, with 2 business days left in the Biden administration, there was an announcement to ban red dye number 3 in 2027 or 2028.
And why that long? We want to kill people for 2 more years? I mean, I would hope that you would, if you're confirmed, you go in and look at it very quickly and say, why do we want to put our people in harm's way? Thank you.
Thank you, Coach.
So red dye number 3 in foods FDA banned red dye 3 due to cancer risk, but you'll still find it in your stores until 2027. Wait a minute. Let me think. This is March of 2025. So for 2 more years, almost 2 months shy of 2 years, this poison is still going to be in things like fruit by the foot, strawberry Nesquik. How many people are going to put Pez candy in Easter baskets? What about Good Humor strawberry bars or double bubble gum? This is insane. Red dye number 3 is also known as erythrocene. Is it a synthetic dye and is not only in foods we consume, but medications we take? A couple of examples. Gabapentin, which is used for nerve pain. Doxycycline capsules, which is an antibiotic. Gummy vitamins, especially those marketed to kids. Cough and cold syrups. Generic or store brand cherry-flavored syrups have historically used red number 3, but many have shifted to red number 40, which is currently not banned, but also not studied for safety. Red number 3 has been known to have high levels of iodine, which also may disrupt hormone production from the thyroid, leading to hypothyroidism. I have hypothyroidism. I'm 59 years old. How much of this poison have I ingested? Synthetic dyes, including red number 3, have been linked, again, to hyperactivity in children in some studies. And they banned it in cosmetics, but not in our food. Wow. Wow. So moving on, we have that the CDC is pulling back $11 billion in COVID funding sent to health departments across the U.S. On March 25th, NBC News reported that the CDC is pulling $11.4 billion in funds allocated to state and community health departments, NGOs, and get this, international recipients, because that's where our hard-earned tax dollars should go. The federal public health emergency ended on May 11th, 2023. HHS Director of Communications Andrew Nixon stated, "The COVID-19 pandemic is over, and HHS will no longer waste, I read, launder, billions of taxpayer dollars responding to a non-existent pandemic that Americans have moved on from years ago. HHS is prioritizing funding projects that will deliver on President Trump's mandate to address our chronic disease epidemic and make America healthy again." So Dr. Marty McCary was confirmed as the FDA commissioner on March 25th with a Senate vote of 56 to 44. Let's hear what he had to say during his confirmation hearing.
Young people for so long, half of our nation's children are sick, and nobody has really been doing anything meaningful on this front until we have gotten new momentum and enthusiasm from Secretary Kennedy and President Trump to finally address the root causes of these diseases: general body inflammation and generalized insulin resistance. And food has a part of it. Food has a big part of it. When we eat foods with a lot of molecules that do not appear in nature, these are chemicals. These are chemicals that the industry insists are safe, a subset of which are concerning. There's a body of research now that suggests concern with some of these ingredients. We have to look at those ingredients, and you have my commitment to do so if confirmed as FDA commissioner. These chemicals are creating an inflammatory response in the gastrointestinal tract. And with an altered microbiome lining that GI tract, kids feel sick. It's not an acute inflammatory reaction. It's a chronic, low-grade reaction, and they don't feel well. And what are we doing? We are drugging our nation's children at scale. At scale. We have to reassess what we're doing because we're not on a good path right now.
Yeah, I grew up in the
We also had Dr. Jay Bhattacharya confirmed as director of NIH, and he had a Senate vote of 54 to 46. Moving on, Arkansas, Governor Sarah Huckabee joined Tennessee, making ivermectin over-the-counter by law. Little Rock, Arkansas legislation approving ivermectin for human use without a prescription has been signed into law. Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders signed Senate Bill 189 into law on Tuesday. The legislation states that, quote, ivermectin suitable for human use may be sold or purchased as an over-the-counter medication in this state without a prescription or consultation with a healthcare provider. That needs to happen in all 50 states, in my opinion. Dr. Mary Talley Bowden over on X posted, update on 10 states with bills to make ivermectin over the counter. Passed, awaiting governor, was Arkansas, and that has been done. Referred to committee is West Virginia, Alabama, Maine, Texas, South Carolina, Minnesota, Oklahoma, and Kentucky. Awaiting referral to committee is Missouri. And then she had an update. Great news. Georgia joins the list of states trying to make ivermectin over the counter. So Senate Bill 366 in Georgia has been filed. So that's great news. So over on Telegram, Dr. Pierre Corey had a post I'm going to share with you. I'm going to see if I can get this so that I can actually read it. I might have to go in a little. We're going to come in a little. Okay. Dr. Pierre Corey, MD, over on Telegram. Numerous states are trying to pass ivermectin laws to make ivermectin available over the counter. Reasons why such a policy is on strong logical and therapeutic grounds. Number 1, ivermectin is safer than aspirin or Tylenol based on pharmacovigilance databases over decades. Number 2, one of the safest medications in history with a wide range of safe dosing. You would have to take 50 to 100 times a normal dose to get sick. And if you did such a thing, you would be confused and altered for a few days and would return to normal without any therapy but supportive care and monitoring. You would not die. Number 3, it's been distributed across continents in billions of doses for decades without a prescription by the World Health Organization's parasite eradication programs. Based on a review by Jacques Ducote, a famous toxicologist, he could find no evidence of any reported case where ivermectin could be directly attributed as a cause of death. And I hope I didn't completely butcher that name. I'm not good at French. Numerous countries around the world would sell it over the counter and have for decades. It has literally near zero important drug interactions. Coumadin and transplant drugs is all. So you don't have to worry about it interfering with other medications that you take. Side effects are effectively just minor and transient. Tennessee had it over the counter for 2 years without incident that I am aware of. It would piss Big Pharma off big time because of its efficacy in cancer and COVID. And then I can't, among many other diseases. And number 10, likely helpful or protective against bird flu or the fear thereof. Insanely effective at preventing COVID. Sorry about that. That was really teeny tiny. I couldn't read it. So on to additional news in West Virginia. West Virginia Governor Patrick Morrisey signed into law legislation prohibiting food dyes in the school food programs effective August 1st, 2025. I like that. He didn't mess around, right? A couple of months from now, not 2 years from now. And beginning January 1st, 2028, the same dyes and preservatives, BHA and propylparaben, are prohibited in drug and food items for sale in the state. Let's watch a little video from Governor Morrisey.
That's why today I'm proud to launch what I'm calling the 4 pillars of a healthy West Virginia. First, we have to clean up the food. We really do. Let's start with no more dyes and dangerous additives in the schools. We know that studies show that can lead to issues with hormones and hyperactivity and learning challenges for our kids and even cancer. Our kids deserve better, and now they're going to get it. You deserve that. That's why earlier this week, we took the first step to remove those harmful dyes from school nutritional programs and food items throughout the state. I'm thankful to the legislature for their leadership in passing this bill and making West Virginia a leader, the first state in the nation to make sweeping changes to clean up our food.
RFK joined him and had this to say.
I'm also say this, that food companies all came and met with me 2 weeks ago. And they're scared of me, but they're more scared of Governor Morrisey. Because what they said, and the reason they said, well, tell us what you want, we're going to do it. And they said, but stop these governors from passing these laws. because we don't want a patchwork where West Virginia and California are banning food dyes, and we have to make special products for those states. So they're terrified of this, of what you're.
So Callie Means posted over on X, the Wall Street Journal spoke to 30 packaged food company leaders. They said their greatest business threat was Americans wanting to be healthy. And here's a clip from the Wall Street Journal. I'll read it to you. Another concern for food companies is that the so-called Make America Healthy Again. How do you like the way that they write that? The so-called Make America Healthy Again, or MAHA movement, could begin influencing low-income consumers' eating habits as well. While Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s call for the removal of artificial dyes from the food supply likely won't pose a significant financial challenge, many companies have already eliminated these additives in their European products and could easily do the same here. The real threat lies in MAHA's potential to reshape Americans' overall perceptions of food. Yeah, I think we need an overhaul of our perceptions of food. So now we're going to get into the meat of this. So let's examine some of those additives that our FDA defines as generally recognized as safe or GRAS. Yet each one of these is flagged as potentially dangerous. First one we're going to start with is potassium bromate. Potassium bromate is an oxidizing agent in baked goods, promoting the rise of dough. The International Agency on Cancer, the IARC, indicates this additive as a possible human carcinogen, which means it is a substance capable of causing cancer, specifically kidney and thyroid cancer. It has been banned as a food additive in Europe since 1990. 1990. And yet it's still being used here. Banned in Canada since 1994 and in India since 2016. Additional banned countries include Nigeria, Brazil, Argentina, South Korea, Peru, China, and Sri Lanka. It was first patented for use in baking in 1914. Been around a long time. At that time, we had no regulatory agencies to oversee the safety of food additives. The Food Additives Amendment of 1958 amended the Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act, requiring the FDA approval for food additives. It required new additives be determined as generally recognized as safe, but if additives like potassium bromate were already on the market, they were not required to be reassessed and simply grandfathered in. So let's look at some common foods where we might find potassium bromate. Hormel, General Mills, Burger King, Arby's, and Wendy's. Wonder Bread, Home Pride Bread, Schmidt Bread, those wonderful Martin's potato rolls everyone loves. And Sunbeam. It's also found in Pillsbury. Oh, I'm incorrect. Pillsbury, Pepperidge Farm, and Arnold, along with Entenmann's, have actually shifted away voluntarily. Again, Pillsbury, Pepperidge Farm, Arnold, and Entenmann's have voluntarily shifted away. So I want to tell you a story that happened to me several months ago. My husband and I decided that we were going to make hamburgers for dinner, cook some burgers on the grill. I got to run to the store because I got to get some, some fresh lettuce and tomato and hamburger rolls. So I was advised about this really cool app called a Yucca app. I'm going to show it to you right now. I'll show you a picture of it and then we'll play with it later. So this is what it looks like. It's in the Google Play and the Apple stores. And it's got the little carrot and Yucca, Yuka. So I use this and I go to the grocery store and I'm scanning the barcodes with my Yucca app. And what was really interesting was all of those that I just mentioned, the like the Martins. Normally I would have picked up the Martins potato rolls because everybody loves them. But instead, I scanned the Arnold barcode and I didn't see any of those dangerous additives. And so that's why I bought the Arnold hamburger rolls. So we will go over how to use this app later in the broadcast. So now we're going to talk about a different chemical. We're going to talk about TBHQ. Now we're going to try to work through this really long, complicated word. Ready? It is terbutyl hydroquinone. Terbutyl hydroquinone, or TBHQ. It will be listed on the ingredients as TBHQ. It is a form of butane. Butane. It stabilizes fats and oils to prevent them from becoming rancid. It affects our T cells in our immune system. And it promotes allergies. In the US, 1 in 13 children have food allergies. This has increased 50% since 1997 and 2011. It is a common food additive found in greasy snacks. And as you can see on the image, we've got toaster strudels and popcorn and Grand's biscuits. God, I love those Grand's biscuits. Fudge sticks, club crackers, Totino's Pizza Party, Pop-Tarts, those daggone Keebler cookies. Yeah, all the stuff that we all love. All of it. All of it. It's got TBHQ. Common foods include cooking oil, margarine, Kellogg's Corn Pops, Lay's potato chips, Pringles, Keebler crackers, Cheez-Its. Oh, Cheez-Its. Wait a minute. Cheez-Its. So if you're a patient at a healthcare facility and they offer you a snack, keep in mind that they may not be offering the healthiest of snacks because this is a common snack offered to patients at healthcare facilities. And right here on the ingredients label is listed in bold letters TBHQ. It's also found in Cheetos and Orville Redenbacher microwave popcorn, as well as Reese's peanut butter cups. So here's a personal story. I went to the grocery store this morning and I had done all the research for this episode. I'm like, oh, I can't buy any of that microwave popcorn. So I'm actually at Safeway and I looked at their organic microwave popcorn, used my little Yucca app, scanned that barcode, and then also read the ingredients list. No TBHQ. In fact, no dangerous chemicals at all. So it doesn't mean you can't have microwave popcorn. You just have to be more discerning now that you have knowledge and information. Now you're going to critically think through the choices that you're making at the grocery store. So we're just going to take a look at a couple more where TBHQ is listed in the ingredients list. Orville Redenbacher's popcorn, Totino's pizza rolls, crescent rolls, and toaster strudels. So now I'm going to show you how to use the Yucca app. I did a little screen recording where I show you how you scan the barcode on something, and then it's going to show you. It'll give you a score, and the closer to 0 you get, the more dangerous the chemicals are. The closer to 100 you get, the safer it is. It will color code as well. If it's red and it's a low number, it means there's harmful additives in there. If it's yellow and it's a low score, then the additives that are in there are eh. If it's green, you're good to go. So let's just take a look at that. So there's the Cheez-Its. And there's my Yucca app, and you hit that scan button. And then you turn your thing over and you scan that barcode. And look, it's 2 out of 10 with a red. 2 out of 10. Look at the additives. 6 risky additives, 1 of them high risk. Then you click on the more information, and there's that TBHQ. Suspected of being carcinogenic, harmful effects on the immune system, vulnerability to infections like the flu. What? Who knew eating Cheez-Its would make you more susceptible to the flu? Good grief. All right. So now we're going to move on to titanium dioxide. That's another fun thing. I was talking with a couple of coworkers last week, and we were talking about, what I'm doing on this episode. And one of the nurses that I work with said, well, I don't understand really, because me and my family, we didn't grow up eating all of this. If I look at a food label and it's got a bunch of chemicals and not anything that I can recognize or pronounce as food, we don't eat it. And I was like, well, that's great that you guys do that, but you are probably more the exception rather than the rule, which is why we're talking about it here today. So titanium dioxide is used in over 11,000 products in the US. It is most widely used as a whitening pigment. It is linked to DNA damage and inflammation. Inflammation. Before we move on, linked to inflammation, because inflammation is what drives the chronic disease. We'll talk about it more later, but just kind of file that away as we keep going. The UK banned titanium dioxide as a food additive in 2022 due to genotoxicity. And that big word means that it may damage genetic material in cells, potentially leading to mutations, genetic disease, and cancer. It has also been linked to intestinal inflammation. Oh, you mean like bubble guts or colitis or ulcerative colitis or irritable bowel syndrome resulting in diarrhea or constipation? You mean anything like that? It causes alterations to the gut microbiome. That's the collection of good microbes that reside in your gut. Common foods that have titanium dioxide are Pop-Tarts, Skittles, Starbursts, Jell-O, Trident white peppermint gum, Mentos fresh mint gum, Duncan Hines creamy vanilla frosting, and Chips Ahoy cookies. Yeah, so I don't use store-bought icing anymore. I invested in one of those big mixers that sits on top of my countertop, and I make my own frosting because there's so much crap in the store-bought frosting. And dang, the Chips Ahoy cookies. All right, moving on. Now we're going into another big long word, butylated hydroxyanisole, or BHA. That's how you'll see it on the label. A lot of times you'll see BHA, BHT together, or just one or the other. So BHA is a preservative. It extends the shelf life by preventing fat-containing products from becoming rancid. This is an endocrine disruptor. This is important to understand. So an endocrine disruptor mimics or interferes with the body's hormones, the endocrine system. And that's what they're referring to with endocrine system, our hormones, because we have hormones that are released from all kinds of different places in our body. Endocrine disruptors can mimic estrogen, causing early puberty. Wait a minute. Let's go back up. Pop-Tarts, Skittles, Starburst, Jell-O, gum, frosting, and Chips Ahoy cookies may cause early puberty or hormone-related cancer, like some breast cancers. Endocrine disruptors can also affect testosterone levels. They can cause low thyroid function or hypo, meaning low, thyroidism. They can disrupt the adrenal gland hormones. The adrenal glands kind of sit on top of your kidneys, affecting blood sugar regulation. BHA is linked to cancer by the International Agency for Research on Cancer. BHA is commonly found in sausage, pepperoni, canned soup, and spaghetti sauce. And onto its sister, butylated hydroxytoluene, or BHT. This one is more widely accepted than BHA and is not listed as a carcinogen by the IARC. But importantly, this one is known to affect signaling from our gut to our brain, which tells us to stop eating. What? I'm going to read that one again. BHT, a preservative, not a carcinogen, but this one affects signaling from our gut to our brain, telling our brain that, hey, we're full. You can stop eating now. Do you guys remember from episode 1? We talked about those scientists that moved from the tobacco companies to the food companies and how they had admitted to the FDA commissioner they knowingly made food more addictive. Is that one of those things that they've added to our food that disrupts signaling so we don't know when to stop eating? Wow. What's the obesity rate in the United States? Holy cow. So if you guys don't know, thefoodbabe.com, a chick named Vani Hari is a phenomenal resource. You could spend hours on that site. She's got so much information about foods and additives. It's a tremendous resource. But let's watch a little video from Vani.
If you want to stop getting your taste buds hijacked by big food, there's one specific ingredient I want you to look out for, and that's natural flavors. Natural flavor is one ingredient on the ingredient label, however, can mean thousands of different chemicals. And this is made in a laboratory by the best scientists in the world to create addictive flavors to food that normally wouldn't taste good or be palatable because it's fake food in a package that's manufactured to sit on the shelf for a long time. And so they make something that is a blueberry flavor, but create it with the most 1/1,000,000th best part of a blueberry taste. And they put it in that product. So you remember that flavor and you go back to it. When I remember a Chick-fil-A sandwich, which I haven't had in over 15 years, by the way, I remember it because of these types of additives. My mouth starts watering when I think about Chick-fil-A or when I say the word Chick-fil-A. It's because they put these chemicals together to really hijack your brain so that every time you pass that fast food restaurant on the road, you want to stop for it. And it's the exact same reason why you know the difference between a McDonald's hamburger or a Burger King hamburger or a Wendy's hamburger. It's all of these manufactured chemicals in a laboratory to take over your body and give you less than nutritious food. And that's definitely the cause of the obesity epidemic that we have today.
Wow. So we're going to move on now to brominated vegetable oil, or BVO. Brominated vegetable oil. This is an emulsifier in citrus-flavored drinks. Emulsifiers help mix two substances that typically separate. It contains bromine, which is linked to neurological disorders and thyroid dysfunction. BVO is already banned in the EU and in Japan. The FDA revoked authorization as a food additive on August 2nd, 2024. But yet again, companies were given 1 year to reformulate and, get this, deplete existing stocks. So they revoke the authorization as a food additive effective last August, but the companies are allowed to continue giving it to us, stocking it on the shelves until their stash of the poison stock we've all bought up and consumed. It's disgusting. So available data as of 2024 showed it's still in use or on store shelves in Giant brand orange soda, Orangette sold at Walmart, and HEB orange burst soda. I think that store is called HEB. It's not in my area, so I'm not familiar with it. It's either HEB or it's HEB. I don't know. Maybe you guys can fill me in on that. But anyway, HEB's orange burst soda. So now we're going to move on to carrageenan. Carrageenan is an emulsifier and a thickener. It is known to cause digestive problems and intestinal inflammation. Do you know anybody that has IBS, colitis, ulcerative colitis? In animal studies, it caused colitis in rats and in guinea pigs. So let's go back to the food babe again. Wow. So moving on to gums. We have Gelen gum, guar gum, xanthan gum, and that's spelled with an X, Xanthan, cellulose gum, locust bean gum. So these gums, they thicken foods. So think, creamy things like yogurts or puddings. They kill beneficial bacteria in your gut. They are also commonly found in coffee creamers. Almond milk. Almond milk. Think about those super healthy smoothies you're making with the almond milk. You might want to take a look at that ingredients list. It's also found, these gums are also found in protein shakes, in most ice creams, and even the good ones, salad dressings, and yogurts. So let's take a look at a video about coffee creamer.
Do you know what's actually in this coffee creamer that you're drinking every morning? This is the #1 selling coffee creamer in the US, but what is actually in it? Let's find out. For ingredients, we have water, 315 grams of sugar, canola and soybean oil, micellar casein, mono and diglycerides, natural and artificial flavors, cellulose gum, dipotassium phosphate, last but not least, carrageenan. They market this as non-dairy, cholesterol-free, and gluten-free, which is technically true, but calling it a creamer is maybe a bit of a stretch. If I was to rename it to what it actually is, I would probably call it sugary oil water with added preservatives and essence of cream. Yum.
Yeah. So I was, for the longest time, a huge Coffee Mate user. Yes. Yes. I don't anymore. And there are available organic and creams and creamers, and even ones that are flavored that only use milk, cream, and cane sugar. You just have to look for them. I get it at Safeway. So we're going to move on to high fructose corn syrup. This one, this monster. So you may see it as high fructose corn syrup. You may see it as HFCS on the ingredients label. It is made from cornstarch. It has more fructose than regular corn syrup. It blends more easily than crystalline sugar. So we covered in episode 1 how the corn subsidies led to corn syrup replacing sugar. It is ubiquitous, which means it is everywhere. It's in fruit juices, Gatorade, Wonder Bread, ketchup, barbecue sauce, pancake syrup, jams, canned fruit, fast food burger buns and sauces, and sodas, to name a few. Unlike glucose, which is metabolized by nearly every cell in our body, fructose is metabolized only by the liver. When consumed in large quantities, the liver gets flooded and converts that excess fructose into a couple of things. First, triglycerides, which raises the blood lipid levels. Anyone go to the doctor and get told that their triglycerides are too high and get told that you need to go on some pharmaceutical to address that when you simply might just be ingesting way too much high fructose corn syrup and you're overloading your liver? So maybe cut out the high fructose corn syrup and see what happens to triglycerides. It also converts the excess fructose, the liver, into uric acid, which can activate inflammatory pathways. Did you say inflammation, BB? So inflammation around your nerves results in pain. Inflammation in your joints results in pain and decreased function. Inflammation in your blood vessels can lead to high blood pressure and cardiovascular disease. So do not ever underestimate the role of inflammation in our chronic disease state, both as individuals and as a nation. And high fructose corn syrup is a huge, huge contributor. High fructose corn syrup disrupts the gut microbiome. We covered that. Those good germs in your gut. The fructose overload on the liver can also lead to fat accumulation. Data show 1 in 10 children, that's 7 to 10 million kids, have fatty liver disease, per the American Liver Foundation. In obese children, that figure was as high as 40%. And in 1980, fatty liver disease in children did not exist. It's the corn syrup. I'm telling you, get the corn syrup out. We stopped using, I'll give you a story. So I guess it was last summer, I started learning about these things before I decided, hey, I need to start telling other people about it. So I learned about the high fructose corn syrup and made the decision that we were going to get that out of our house. So I went through the pantry, got rid of anything and everything that had high fructose corn syrup in it. I won't buy anything that has high fructose corn syrup in it. I specifically look, if I'm buying something that you know is going to be sweet, look for something made with sugar, because sugar gets broken down into glucose, not fructose. So I'm not overwhelming my liver. Anyway, it was Christmas time and I had a relapse. I just was craving the living daylights out of some peanut M&Ms. So I bought a big honking bag of peanut M&Ms. And so every night I got my tablet open and I'm scrolling the feed and I got my hand in there and I'm popping M&Ms. I mean, I'm eating a huge handful of these things every night. And this went on for about maybe 5 days. And it was on a Monday and I went into work and I was working in pre-op where I'm starting a lot of IVs, and like my third IV, both of my wrists were just killing me. Like my carpal tunnel like was screaming. And by the end of the day, the tendon right here on my elbow was crying at me and aching. And another day went by. I'm still popping the stupid M&Ms. Another day goes by and now I'm waking up in the middle of the night because my shoulder's aching and I'm hurting. And I'm going, what in the heck is going on? Why all of a sudden am I having multiple joints aching and burning and carrying on? And then it dawned on me, hey, ding dong, you haven't been eating high fructose corn syrup. So I wasn't flooding my liver. And then I flooded myself with the stupid M&Ms. Not only was I ingesting a bunch of the high fructose corn syrup, but also all those dyes that we're going to get to in a minute. But man, once I realized that, I threw that bag in the trash. It took another 2 or 3 days, I think, for it to clear from my system. And then all that joint pain went away. So if you don't think that what you eat doesn't have an impact on how you feel, I would suggest that maybe you start doing some experiments like that goofy one I just told you about. So, this excess fructose can lead to insulin resistance. You ever heard that term? I hear it a lot. Maybe you don't hear it, but I'm even hearing it starting to kind of hit in on social media or in newscasts. This whole insulin resistance problem that we have in our country. In simple terms, insulin is produced by your pancreas. And what insulin does simply is it piggybacks glucose into your cells for energy. Now let's talk about glucose. So if I eat, what I eat gets broken down into its most simplest forms. And it can be amino acids that are the building block of protein, or it can be, the simplest form of glucose, which is where the carbohydrates get broken down into. But anyway, it's glucose that every cell in your body uses for energy. The problem is the glucose can't get inside the cell without piggybacking onto insulin. So we need the insulin, and your cell needs that glucose. With insulin resistance, without insulin, the glucose hangs around outside the cell in your bloodstream. Okay, let's do that again. If you don't have insulin to piggyback the glucose into the cell, then the glucose hangs out in the bloodstream. And so if you were to have your blood drawn, what do you think your blood sugar would look like? The glucose can't get inside the cell. So the cells are starving. Even though there's all of this glucose right there available, it can't get in. When you have insulin resistance, you're making enough insulin. There's nothing wrong with your pancreas. You're making the insulin. The cells are not responding to it appropriately. They are resistant. So we have the same problem. Glucose can't enter the cell, so it builds up in the bloodstream. But this is different than other types of diabetes where your pancreas isn't making enough insulin. With insulin resistance, you're making enough insulin. Your pancreas is doing its job. But because of what is happening with your liver, because of all that high fructose corn syrup, your cells are now resistant to the insulin. Small amounts of high fructose corn syrup can be metabolized by the liver without negative side effects. And so when they mean small amounts, they're talking about less than 25 grams a day. So, okay, what does that mean, baby? Well, a 20-ounce Coke has approximately 39 grams of fructose. So you can safely metabolize in your liver without causing insulin resistance less than 1 Coke's worth of fructose a day. So you want to tell me about that supersized soda you just ordered? Per the USDA, the U.S. consumption averages 50 to 60 grams a day. I'm going to go back. Our liver can handle 25 grams a day without there being negative effects like insulin resistance. And on average, in America, we are consuming 50 to 60 grams per day. And we wonder why we have a chronic disease epidemic and why all of our children are suffering from fatty liver disease. So you must be wondering, come on, baby. That's fine. I ate that when I was a kid. No, you didn't. Wonder Bread when we were kids. Enriched flour, water, sugar, yeast, salt, milk, and butter. Look in the ingredients of Wonder Bread now. I can't even count how many those are. McDonald's French fries when we were kids, russet potatoes, beef tallow, and salt. Look at the number of ingredients in a McDonald's French fry now. Gatorade, which kind of, I don't remember exactly when it hit, but I remember Gatorade kind of hitting the scene. It was a big deal. It had water, sugar, salt, potassium, and lemon juice. Now look at it, and look at all the dyes. Peanut butter when we were kids, have a peanut butter sandwich on your Wonder Bread. That was a healthy meal. Peanut butter and jelly on Wonder Bread, because the Wonder Bread was actually wheat and yeast and salt and milk and butter. And the peanut butter had peanuts, salt, and sugar. And the jelly or the jam had cane sugar, not high fructose corn syrup. But you give your kid a peanut butter and jelly sandwich now, so let's move on to dyes. So this is also from the Food Babe, and she has lots of these on her website. Like I said, it's a great resource. She lists, this is what Skittles look like. Look at all the ingredients in Skittles. So let's just kind of walk through this, because I think this is a great example of the things that we should be looking for when we are choosing. So Skittles has sugar and corn syrup. Those are the top 2 ingredients, which means they are the most prevalent. Hydrogenated palm kernel oil. That's a seed oil. That's not good for you either. We're going to cover that, the seed oils, on another episode. Less than 2% of citric acid, tapioca, dextrin, cornstarch, natural and artificial flavors, sodium citrate. Look at the colors. Look at the number of dyes. Yellow 5, Lake. Red 40, blue 2, yellow 6, titanium dioxide. We just covered that one. Blue number 1, yellow number 6, red 40, yellow 5, and blue 1. And then to, put the icing or the cherry on the icing of this cake, carnauba wax. Let's just wax you up too. So Food Babe gives you this other as an alternative. So because it's tough, man, when you got kids and they love the Skittles and you want to give them the Skittles, and I mean, come on, you can choose others. So Yum Earth Giggles, organic cane sugar. Why is organic important? Because organic foods don't use genetically modified organisms, GMOs. Why is that important? Well, if you remember from episode 1, we talked about those genetically modified crops and that they require a whole lot more Roundup or glyphosate. And glyphosate is really dangerous. We're going to cover that in another episode. So stick with the organics and look for that non-GMO, because that's going to be better, because then you're not ingesting sugar grown in fields sprayed with Roundup. Organic rice syrup, organic palm oil, citric acid, organic flavors. They're using turmeric for color, organic sunflower, lecithin, malic acid, and they're using, look at the things that they're using for color: radish, sweet potato, carrot, black currant, and they use organic carnauba wax. So it's just interesting to me. We can color to make it, more appealing. We don't have to have, the crazy synthetic dyes to make it boldly colorful. We just have to change what we're marketing to the kids. Okay, so let's move on to those dyes. Red number 40, also known as Allura Red. It is linked to hyperactivity in children. Wait a minute. So I put some Skittles in the Easter baskets with all of those dyes, and the kids start bouncing off the walls. How many times have we referred to that as a sugar rush? Oh my God, the kids had some candy and now they're bouncing off the walls. What if it's the dyes? Because Red 40 is linked to hyperactivity in children. You heard RFK and the West Virginia governor in the videos earlier. So a Lancet study in 2007 prompted the EU to put warning labels on products. Red number 40 is commonly found in Skittles, M&Ms, Mountain Dew, Fruit Loops. It's also found in medicines. Don't forget the medicines. Cold and flu, cough syrup, children's Motrin, children's Tylenol, Benadryl allergy liquid, amoxicillin suspension, Flintstone and Centrum Kids vitamins. Kids vitamins? Oh, and this one's my favorite. Are you ready? Generic Adderall tablets. Red number 40, that causes hyperactivity, is found in Adderall, generic Adderall tablets. The medication to treat hyperactivity in children has dye in it that causes hyperactivity. You cannot make this crap up. I'm telling you. Okay, let's move on. Yellow number 5. This is the most allergy-prone dye. It can cause hives, itching, and asthma. How many Skittles are your asthmatic kids popping down? because I know I can throw down a handful of M&Ms with no problem at all. And I know my grandkids can put down some Skittles. So, you know, it is also linked to hyperactivity and ADHD. It is commonly found in Doritos, Gatorade, pickles. You know what? I'm going to have to start canning now because I like pickles. And desserts. That lemon meringue pie. It's also found in the following meds: children's Motrin, children's Tylenol, Dayquil, cold and flu, cephalexin, antibiotic suspension, Tums for your upset tummy, and one a day prenatal vitamins. Prenatal vitamins? Okay. Yellow number 6. This one gives the orange hue. It has EU warning labels. This one is also associated with hyperactivity. It's commonly found in Captain Crunch. And I like Captain Crunch. It's my guilty pleasure. Captain Crunch and Frosted Flakes with bananas. But I do not have Captain Crunch or Frosted Flakes in my kitchen. I don't. They're gone. But I do love them. And Starbursts. I love Starbursts. But I don't have any of those either. It's also found in Orange Crush. Then we have blue number 1. We saw that on the Starburst image just a couple of images ago. So a 2016 food chemistry study found that blue dye, the blue number 1, crosses the blood-brain barrier. What's that, BB? The blood-brain barrier is a membrane that protects your brain from harmful substances or pathogens that might be running around in your bloodstream. Can't get to your brain because of that blood-brain barrier. Well, apparently blue number 1 crosses it. That's fabulous. So that hints at neurological side effects. So blue number 1 is commonly found in blue Gatorade, blue M&Ms, and frostings. So let's take a look at a couple of things. We heard in the beginning with the videos that the differences between the food here and the food in the EU or the UK. And, it's the same companies, right? Kellogg's makes Fruit Loops. They formulate their Fruit Loops with all of this crap and sell it to us, but they don't in the EU. And so we have to start demanding. So let's just take look at a couple of differences between the US and the UK. So McDonald's French fries here in the US, look at all those oils. Oh my gosh. Look at all those oils. And then what is that? Dimethyl polysiloxane? I don't even know what that one is. That's not even in my presentation. And then in the UK, we've got, some vegetable oil and some salt and a little dextrose. All right. Let's look at oatmeal. So Quaker strawberry and cream oatmeal packets. That's healthy, right? You want to give your kids something. I'm not going to feed you the Captain Crunch. Have some oatmeal. It's good for you. Is it? Let's look at these ingredients. Whole grain rolled oats. So the first question I ask when I look at that is, okay, and how much Roundup, glyphosate, pesticides were sprayed on that crop to get that grain that's in that oatmeal packet I'm getting ready to feed my children. Rolled oats, sugar, a creaming agent, multidextrone, sunflower and palm oils, flavored and colored fruit pieces, dehydrated apples that are treated with sodium sulfite, artificial strawberry flavor, red 40, guar gum. There's that gum. Remember, we were talking about the gums to make it kind of creamy. Artificial flavor, citric acid. Oh, there's a vitamin. A vitamin. And then, there's riboflavin and folic acid all the way at the bottom. So let's look at the UK. Quaker whole grain rolled oats, sugar, freeze-dried raspberry pieces instead of apples that are treated with a chemical and artificial strawberry flavor in ours. They get raspberry pieces. They also get freeze-dried strawberry pieces and natural flavoring. Man, this is messed up. And I don't know about you guys, but this pisses me off. It really pisses me off. Mountain Dew. In the US, we have carbonated water and what? High fructose corn syrup. Yeah, go ahead and let your kid drink 3 or 4 of those a day. We talked about how much fructose is in that and how long before your kid's going to have fatty liver disease. Citric acid, sodium benzoate, gum, Arabic gum, calcium disodium EDTA. Oh, look. Brominated vegetable oil. You know that thing that the FDA rescinded authorization for, but yet they can keep giving it to us for another year until they run out of their supplies? Yeah, there it is. There it is in the Mountain Dew. Let's look at the UK. Carbonated water and sugar. Their livers aren't getting bombarded with high fructose corn syrup, just us here. And that goes back to those corn subsidies we talked about in episode 1. Citric acid, ascorbic acid, flavorings, potassium sorbate, which is a preservative. There's a little bit of gum in there. And then the color is a natural coloring beta carotene instead of, yellow 5 in ours. All right, let's look at ketchup. Here in the US, we get tomato concentrate, some vinegar, and then the third ingredient in our ketchup, high fructose corn syrup. Salt, spice, onion powder, natural flavoring. Over in the UK, tomatoes, spirit vinegar, and sugar. Once again, so I think the big takeaway here that I'm seeing, maybe you're seeing it too, is that, like we were talking about earlier, high fructose corn syrup is ubiquitous. It's everywhere. So even if you're not going to drink, the big honkin' soda filled with corn syrup, you go, well, I'm going to try to cut back on my corn syrup. It's in everything. How in the world are we not overwhelming our livers? Well, the answer is we are overwhelming our livers. That's why we're seeing insulin resistance the way that we are. Obesity. When you're insulin resistant, that's going to increase the obesity. Yeah. That's why we're seeing the fatty liver disease in children that we didn't exist in 1980. It's insane. It makes me crazy. This makes me crazy. Let's look at one of my favorites. Frosted Flakes with the banana. I love it. I'm going to have to figure out a way to get some from the UK. So here in the US, milled corn, sugar, malt flavor, salt. There's that BHT. Remember we talked about BHT? Vitamins and minerals, iron, vitamin C, a couple other things. There's a couple of vitamins, a couple more vitamins, and some vitamins. Okay, over in the UK, maize, that's the other word for corn, sugar, barley malt, flavoring, salt, vitamins, but no BHT. Do you notice there's no BHT? Why do we need BHT in our frosting? I mean, I just look at this and I go, okay, if you are able to manufacture, box, store, have a shelf life, and market to the UK without BHT, why are you putting it in ours? Why? Why? What would motivate them? Well, I can tell you one of the things that I consider the fact that all of these side effects that I listed with all of these additives and all of these dyes, they create illness. And those illnesses require pharmaceuticals to manage the symptoms. So if our food supply is contributing to chronic illness, which forces us to then become lifelong customers of big pharma, if those two entities work together, yeah. Okay. And then finally, this is a comprehensive list. It's a big list. There's a lot there of some of the ingredients to try to avoid. I know you're not going to remember all of these, but I think, my coworker at work, I think she was so dead on right. If there's stuff on that label that you can't even pronounce, it's probably a chemical. You saw me struggling to pronounce some of these words. If there's an ingredient that you can't pronounce, it's probably a chemical and it's probably not good for you. Did that come from nature? No, it didn't. Do you think that's good for your body? It probably isn't. So let's just go through some of these that we covered today: the BHT and the BHA, the blue one. Like I said, we're going to get into the canola oils. There's carrageenan. There's more oils. Look at that corn syrup, more oil. This one, I don't even know. Dimethyl I don't know. Fructose or fructose syrup. Look at the gums. There's the gallon gum and the guar gum, high fructose corn syrup, locust bean gum, maltodextrin. Let's see. Partially hydrogenated oils. We're going to cover that in another episode. Red 3, red 40, soybean oil, TBHQ, titanium dioxide, yellow 5, yellow 6. So as we arm ourselves with knowledge, let your dollar drive the market. And I know. I told you I went to the grocery store this morning. So I have the stupid Safeway app, and so I'm going through and I'm putting in my coupons because I want to try to save money when I go to the grocery store. So I'm adding the coupons to my little Safeway card. And when you go through the weekly ad, they'll like separate it by categories. And almost everything that's on sale is crap. But I start to look at it like it's poison. It's poison. That's just poison and it's going to hurt me. And I'm not going to buy it. And when I first started making changes, my husband's like, we don't have any good cereal. But, as you start to change, you adjust and you do adjust. So, just try not to relapse on M&Ms. Anyway, but let your dollar drive the market, because when we stop buying the crap that they're selling, they'll be forced to make some changes. And don't get overwhelmed. When I showed my daughter the Yucca app, and she called me, she'd gone to the grocery store. She's like, "Oh my God, Mom, I was at the store for like 2.5 hours. I'm obsessed with this app." Like, well, you didn't have to scan the whole store, but the purpose of that conversation was to illustrate that we can allow this to overwhelm us. So what I told my daughter is what I'm going to tell you, and that is maybe what we can all do is make one better decision today. Just today. When I go to the grocery store, I'm going to buy this popcorn instead of that popcorn. I'm going to choose this ketchup instead of that ketchup. And one better decision at a time, we start to get healthier and we start to drive the change in these manufacturers that we so desperately need. As you start to look at labels again, look for those non-GMO. You'll see it. It's usually on the front, and it has a weird little symbol, but it says non-GMO to reduce the amount of glyphosate that you are ingesting. We talked about the fact that those GMO crops require more glyphosate, and if you are not familiar with that, go back and watch episode 1. We go into that in great detail. We are going to go into seed oils on a future episode. So hang in there. We're going to hit those seed oils. But this is from X. It's an account called Mel Gibson News. It grabbed my attention because of what it said, not because of whose account it is. Bayer is a pharmaceutical company. Monsanto is a pesticide company. Monsanto makes glyphosate. So Bayer bought Monsanto. Bayer makes drugs for non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, which is a cancer. Monsanto makes a chemical called glyphosate to spray on food crops. Glyphosate causes non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Now you see the full circle and you see the depths of what we're dealing with. And if you think that what I just showed you right there is some kind of conspiracy theory, do a little research, because before Robert F. Kennedy Jr. became the Secretary for Health and Human Services, he was a very active lawyer, and he successfully sued Monsanto before it was bought by Bayer for non-Hodgkin's for the glyphosate causing non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and he won that case at the appeal level. So yeah, it causes lymphoma. So until our public health officials begin acting in our best interests, we have to. The days of blindly just trusting experts, yeah, those days are over. Okay. Those days are over. We can't anymore. We can't. It is so clear that they are not acting in our best interests. And so we have to. We have to be advocates for ourselves and for our families. But I do have hope. I do have hope. Let's hear what Bobby Kennedy has to say.
Hey, everybody. I'd like to share with you a paradox that I've encountered here in Washington, D.C. as the new Secretary of HHS. Our department is filled for the most part with competent, conscientious public servants, and yet the agency has been inefficient as a whole. Over the past 4 years during the Biden administration, HHS's budget increased by 38%, and its staffing increased by 17%, but all that money has failed to improve the health of Americans. In fact, the rate of chronic disease and cancer increased dramatically as our department has grown. Our lifespan has dropped, so Americans now live 6 years shorter than Europeans. We are the sickest nation in the world, and We have the highest rate of chronic disease. The U.S. ranks last among 40 developed nations in terms of health, but we spend 2 to 3 times more per capita than those nations. As secretary, I now understand why all this money is not improving our health. HHS is a sprawling bureaucracy that encompasses literally hundreds of departments, committees, and other offices. You know how bureaucracies work. Every time a new issue arises, they tack on another committee. This leads to tremendous waste and duplication, and worst of all, a loss of any unified sense of mission. The resulting pandemonium has injured American health and damaged department morale. When I arrived, I found that over half of our employees don't even come to work. HHS has more than 100 communications offices and more than 40 IT departments and dozens of procurement offices and 9 HR departments. In many cases, they don't even talk to each other. They're mainly operating in silos. Sometimes these sub-agencies work at cross purposes with each other. Some of these little fiefdoms, for example, are so insulated and territorial that they actually hoard our patient medical data and sell it for profit to each other. Instead of remedying the chronic disease crisis, perverse incentives have administrators checking boxes and grading their own homework while public health declines. A few isolated divisions are neglecting public health altogether and seem only accountable to the industries that they're supposed to be regulating. In one case, defiant bureaucrats impeded the secretary's office from accessing the closely guarded databases that might reveal the dangers of certain drugs and medical interventions. I have some good news, though. As part of President Trump's DOGE workforce reduction initiative, we're going to streamline HHS to make our agency more efficient and more effective. We're going to imbue the agency with a clear sense of mission to radically improve the health of Americans and to improve agency morale. We're going to eliminate an entire alphabet soup of departments and agencies while preserving their core functions by merging them into a new organization called the Administration for a Healthy America, or AHA. We have 2 goals. The first is obvious: to save the taxpayer money by making our department more efficient. And the second is to radically improve our quality of service. I want to promise you now that we're going to do more with less. No American is going to be left behind. Our key services delivered through Medicare and Medicaid, the FDA and CDC, and other agencies will enter a new era of responsiveness and a new era of effectiveness. We're going to consolidate all of these departments and make them accountable to you, the American taxpayer, and the American patient. These goals will honor the aspirations of the vast majority of existing HHS employees who actually yearn to make America healthy. 28 great divisions will become 15. The entire federal workforce is downsizing now, so this will be a painful period for HHS as we downsize from 82,000 full-time employees to around 62,000. We're keenly focused on paring away excess administrators while increasing the number of scientists and frontline health providers so that we can do a better job for the American people. We're going to streamline our agency and eliminate the redundancies and invite everyone to align behind a simple, bold mission. I want every HHS employee to wake up every morning asking themselves, what can I do to restore American health today? I want to empower everyone in the HHS family to have a sense of purpose and pride and a sense of personal agency and responsibility to this larger goal. We're going to save taxpayers nearly $2 billion a year, and we're going to return HHS to its original commitment to public health and gold standard science. I want this agency to be once again a revered scientific institution that once made HHS the envy of the world. I want everyone who works here to be proud of this agency, to be proud of their work, to feel a renewed inspiration and their own sense of responsibility for our success in restoring America to good health. Streamlining HHS is part of a shift to new priorities, especially ending the chronic disease epidemic with clean water, safe food, effective medicine, good science, radical transparency, and a healthy environment. I think most Americans would agree with me that throwing more money at healthcare isn't going to solve the problem, or it would have solved it already. obviously what we've been doing hasn't worked. That's why we're making this dramatic overhaul. But the real overhaul is even bigger. The real overhaul is improving the health of the entire nation to make America healthy again.
My favorite part of that was, what can I do to restore American health today? And that's why I'm doing this. And you can be a part of this. What can you do today to help restore American health? Hit that thumbs up. That helps me get more eyes on these videos because I'm brand new. And share this video. Share it with your friends. Share it with your family. Share it with your coworkers. Because if we can just help one person at a time make better decisions, get informed, and together we are all working with the leadership, the public health officials, to restore America and to increase our health as a nation, then we all win in the process. So please, if you don't have an account, it's hard to hit that little thumbs up button on Rumble. So make an account, and then you can follow the channel and hit that like button. And please, of course, share it. Thank you again for joining me on this episode of Doses of Deception. Again, I am BB McGuire, and in upcoming episodes, we're going to be looking at things like seed oils, glyphosate, ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine. Let's see, what else do we have? SSRIs, weight loss drugs. So lots of things coming up. Please continue to follow, and I'll see you next time on Doses of Deception. Thanks.